Hi, I'm Andrew from Alpine Home Air Products. We're here in a typical basement about to install a humidifier. Now, if you're watching this video, you probably are thinking about buying a humidifier for yourself, or you've already purchased one. Well, this is the video for you because we're going to show you exactly how you can install your own humidifier. We'll answer for you exactly what tools you're going to need, supplies you'll need to provide, and how it's done. By the time you watch this video, you'll have the know-how and the confidence to be able to install it yourself. What do you need to install a humidifier? Here's what you need. These are the tools and these are the supplies that don't come with that you'll need to provide on your own. These are some basic hand tools. We've got your drill, wire cutters, sheet metal shears. These are sheet metal crimpers. They're handy. You could probably get by without them just by using a regular pair of pliers if you had to, or a needle nose. A screwdriver, a couple of wrenches, and a tubing cutter. Some drills. Now for supplies, what you're going to need is some 1/4-inch copper or plastic tubing. I recommend copper. 1/2-inch tubing. Some wire nuts. 2 conductor wire. This would be 18 to 22 gauge. Light thermostat wire. Sheet metal screws. And if you're installing a bypass style humidifier, you'll need the 6-inch sheet metal pipe to go with that. If you're using a power humidifier, you won't need that. To help you understand a little bit more about some of the terminology and how to actually install your humidifier, let me explain briefly a little bit about what you have as far as your ductwork goes on your typical home furnace. What we have here is a natural gas forced air furnace, which is very popular. You might have something similar. And as far as the ductwork, the sheet metal that we have coming in and out of it, what you have over on this side here would be considered your return air plenum. The air comes down from the home, it gets sucked out of each of the rooms down here, comes into the bottom of the furnace. That air comes up into the furnace, is heated, and then it comes through here. Now this set of ductwork above the furnace will be referred to as your supply air or your warm air plenum. If you have central air conditioning above your furnace in this area right here, you'll have an air conditioning coil. And your humidifier will be installed above that air conditioning coil if you were installing on the supply plenum or somewhere convenient on your return air plenum. Where do you install your humidifier? On the supply plenum or on the return plenum? Depends upon which model you have and where there's available space. Now in the power humidifier units, they need to be installed on the supply air or warm air plenum only. The bypass models can be conveniently installed on either the supply or the return, whichever is convenient for you. Now we're going to show you just a little bit an actual application. Now the first thing we want to do before we start the installation is to make sure the power to the furnace is off. We can do that by turning off the switch here. How do you install a humidifier? I'm going to show you how. Using the Aprilaire 700 model. Now this is a power humidifier model versus the bypass humidifier models. But all the humidifiers that we sell on our online web store, the Aprilaire 600, the Aprilaire 700, the Honeywell 225B, the Honeywell 365B, they're all very similar in application as far as installation goes. You're going to be doing the same things to install all of them. Any differences between those other humidifiers and the 700, which I'll be installing here, I'll point out along the way as we go. The reason why I'm choosing this particular model is I like it. It has easy application because I don't have to do extra sheet metal work. It also works for a lot of different home sizes, small ones as well as larger ones. And I like the 110 volt power fan. So the first thing I have to do is figure out where am I going to install it. Now, because this Aprilaire 700 is a power humidifier unit, I have to install it on the supply air or warm air plenum. So the spot that it's going to fit in this application for me is right here. So I'm holding it in place first just to make sure it fits, and I see that it does. So now we'll go ahead and set myself up to cut the sheet metal hole in this area. So I have my template here, and the template will tell me exactly where I'm going to cut the hole in the plenum before I can install the humidifier. Now this piece of paper is actually the exact same size as the hole. So I go ahead and I put it in place, and then I will mark the outline of it with my marker here. and that will tell me exactly where I need to cut my hole. So the next thing I have to do then is drill some holes in here and cut this square out. And then I cut this out with my sheet metal shears. So here I have the back of the humidifier itself with the humidifier pad in it. So I'll go ahead and take the humidifier pad out. And now I install the base onto the plenum here. Once I get it in place, I will screw it in the various screw holes on the outside here with the screws that are supplied. So I'll go ahead and do that now. Now that I have the base installed on the furnace here, I have to put these little flaps down. As you'll see on either side, there's a little flap that just bends in and holds the base a little bit more securely. And then I'm going to go ahead and screw it down with the screws that are supplied. Now we're coming around to the other side of the furnace to our return air plenum, where we're going to install the humidistat controller, which has the computer in it to automatically adjust and, based upon your own needs, the amount of humidity into the home. Where do you install it? You always install it on the return air plenum. And so first we'll take the knob off here, and we can open the cover up. You can see inside it. And we're going to need to cut a hole the same size as this here to allow this to mount in the return air plenum and then screw it in place. There's a template that comes with it in the installation manual. You'll see a tear out template size. It'll tell you exactly what size to cut that hole. So we're going to go ahead and cut that now. You want to note, as you'll see in the installation instructions, that the humidistat controller should always be mounted about 6 inches at least upstream from any other ductwork that you have on your return air plenum. Okay, we've installed the humidistat controller in the return air plenum here. One thing you'll want to note is that there's little electrical jumper blocks here, which can be changed depending upon the model you have by pulling the jumper blocks off and sliding them onto different pins. Exactly where they're supposed to be is indicated in the instructions that comes with it. It's easy to do. Now we're going to start the wiring portion here. And the 24-volt control wires, using our 22 or 18 gauge 2-conductor wire, which is provided by yourself, is going to be hooked into this little panel here. 2 of the terminals are for 24 volts AC, which we'll get out of the furnace. 2 of the terminals go to the April air humidifier itself, or whatever brand humidifier you have. And then the other 2 terminals go to the outside sensing bulb. And we're going to go ahead and do that now. So what we have here, we're outside the home, near the air conditioner. I've used the hole that goes for the air conditioning pipes to be able to run my outside sensing bulb through the same hole. Now you might find a hole similar in your house that you can steel to stick the outside sensing bulb wire through, or you might have to drill a new one. Either way, I've stuck mine through here. We're going to hook up the other end of it to our humidifier in the basement. What I have here as well is a little cover that goes on top of the sensing bulb, which easily mounts to the side of the house, and the sensing bulb clips underneath. So here's the other end of the sensing bulb wire. I've extended it using my own control wire here with wire nuts. And now I'm going to go ahead and hook it up into the humidistat controller where it says outdoor temperature sensor. Now I'm going to run another 24 volt 2-conductor wire, just a piece of wire, from these 2 leads here. These are the 24 volt leads which will turn on the solenoid sensor. The other end of the wire runs back around to the humidistat controller mounted on the return air duct. And then I hook up the other end of the wire to the humidistat controller where it says AA. In this case, that means April air. And then we run a length of wire down into the furnace for the 24 volt supply and hook it up where it says 24 volt AC. And then we put the cover on. Now this is the part where we hook up the 24 volts to the furnace, because this is, again, the Aprilaire 700 model. Now all the humidifiers will hook up to your furnace a little bit differently. Depends upon your particular furnace and the unit you have. Now it's spelled out pretty clearly in the installation instructions exactly what the wiring diagram is, and it's your best bet to go ahead and take a look at that. Look at the furnace that you have, and between the two you'll be able to figure out the wiring from there. Okay, now we're done with the 24 volt electrical wiring part. We're going to go ahead and do the plumbing. Now the water is supplied to the humidifiers through 1/4 inch copper tubing, which will hook up to your water supply somewhere in the home. Now we have easy access in this situation because we've got water pipes right next to the humidifier. But you can go ahead and find your copper water pipes somewhere in your house and then run the length of this copper tubing between that pipe and the humidifier. Now, how are you going to hook this copper tubing into your water pipe to get the water to the humidifier? Well, that's going to be done with the saddle valve. It comes in this little bag here, and we're going to show you exactly how that saddle valve goes together. So here's what we have, the pieces for the saddle valve. It's easy to install. We go ahead and take this piece here and install it in this top portion. So we have it like so. And then we take the bottom part of the bracket and one of the screws and screw the top and bottom brackets together. Just partly, so we can still open and close it. Then we take this rubber piece here, and that sticks underneath, like so. And we're going to hold on to these other two pieces here. And we're going to take this with us. We're going to go over to the water pipe. We're going to go ahead and install it now. Okay, now we have our saddle valve pre-assembled mostly. We're going to go ahead and install it on our water pipe. Now we have copper water pipes here, and this is what's referred to as a self-piercing saddle valve. So what it does is once we hook it on or clamp it to the outside of the water pipe, once it's fully installed, we'll go ahead and turn this piece down here with this screw. And what happens is there's a piercing sharp end to this piece, which will actually poke a hole in the pipe and allow the water to flow through without any leaks occurring. Now, this only works on a copper water pipe. If you have a steel water pipe, then you'll need to drill a hole first. Now, before you drill the hole in the water pipe, you'll want to shut your water off first. Now, we're choosing to install this saddle valve on the hot water pipe. We have both hot and cold available, and you can install actually on hot, cold, hard water, soft water. Any of them will work. Your best choice is a soft water if it's available, and hot water up to 140 degrees. Hot water is preferable because it's a little bit more efficient to hook up to the hot water when running your humidifier. Now the way we go ahead and install this saddle valve is pretty straightforward. We'll go ahead and wrap the pieces of the saddle valve like so around the pipe, and then we'll take that other screw that we've been saving and go ahead and run that through. And at first we're just going to tighten it by hand just to get it in place. And once we get it in place, then we'll be able to go ahead and secure it with a screwdriver. Now at this point we want to make sure that the handle part of the saddle valve here is turned all the way out, so all the way to the left. We'll screw the other side in. Now I've got it pretty much secured in place. It's not tight yet. I'm going to go ahead and tighten it down fairly snugly, making sure it's put on evenly, screwing down each side a little bit at a time until it's fairly snug. So now that we have the saddle valve installed, we need to hook up our copper tubing between the saddle valve and the humidifier. So to do that, we're going to use our tube cutter to cut the appropriate length. Now we'll go ahead and hook up our 1/4-inch water pipe that we cut between the saddle valve and the humidifier using the compression fittings which came with it. Now there's a set of compression fitting that came with the saddle valve package, and then there's another compression valve fitting which came on the solenoid itself, part of the humidifier, which is on there. We'll just go ahead and unscrew both of those, put the copper tubing on, and then tighten them down with 2 wrenches. And then we put the tubing in the saddle valve and tighten the nut with the compression fitting on it. And as we tighten it with the wrench, the compression fitting will actually squeeze and shape the copper to make a tight, watertight fitting. And I'll use 2 wrenches here to make the final tight connection so it's nice and snug. And then we'll go ahead and do the same thing on the other end. Put the nut on, then the compression fitting. And then snug the nut all the way down, wrench it tight. Now that we've got the pipe hooked up, the copper tubing, we're going to go ahead and turn the saddle valve in. When we do that, the saddle valve is going to pierce the copper tubing and let the water come through all the way up to the solenoid. Now, if we've done everything correctly and our fittings are tight, we won't have any water leaks. Let's go ahead and do that. Now, once we have it tightened in all the way, we want to reverse it and pull it all the way back out. And what that's going to do, it's going to pull the needle out of the pipe to allow the water to finally flow through the tubing. So we'll go ahead and we reverse it all the way out until it stops. When it stops, we're done. We don't want to turn it too much beyond that. There we go. And no leaks. And now we'll go ahead and put the cover on. We're getting near the end. All we have to do is hook up our drain tubing. Now on the model 448, you don't have a drain tube. But on the other models you do. It's a 1/2-inch drain tubing, and you can get that at any hardware store. We simply go ahead and stick it at the drain tubing on the drain tube hole here on the bottom. And the other end of our drain tubing, we simply run over to the floor drain and trim it. Now we're almost done. All we have to do now on the Model 700 is to find a place where we can plug in 110 volt power. Now if we don't have a place right here on the furnace already, we'll have to create a receptacle for that. Now this is only on the power fan models do you have to have 110 volts. On the bypass models, they're 24 volts only, and your wiring is already done. Now we need a place to plug in. Where are we going to do it? If we don't already have a receptacle, you'll need to put a receptacle box in. Standard receptacle as you can get at any hardware store. You'll wire it in conjunction with your furnace on-off switch. This is where the main power goes into your furnace, and you would have a jumper coming out of it to feed your receptacle, and from the receptacle you could then simply plug in the humidifier and you'd be done. When you install this, install it naturally according to national electrical standards. So that's it, we're done. Your humidifier is installed. So what does it take to use it? All you have to do is turn to your humidistat controller here. The higher the number that you turn your humidistat controller to, the more humidity you'll get in your home. The lower, the less. Keep in mind there's a computer in here that works with the outside sensing bulb to give you just the right amount of humidity based upon the outside air temperature. And again, your humidifier will only run when your furnace is on in the heating season, when you really need the humidity. So that's it. The job's complete. Our Aprilaire 700 is fully installed. Keep in mind that what you've seen with the Model 700 carries over for the other models. They're similar in installation. Also remember that full installation instructions come inside the box, so if you still have some questions, the full complete instructions will probably answer those for you. We really appreciate you shopping with Alpine Home Air Products. Thanks a lot.